Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to Pair Fair. We're in day 2, and you have joined our panel discussion for the day. My name is Risa Bennett. I'm the Program Manager for Education and Outreach at Pear Deck, and I am so excited to be here with some of my friends in education. I will introduce them in just a moment. But what we're going to be talking about today is the fact that back to school plans are shifting and changing almost daily. We even have an example of that on our panel today, and no two plans are the same so far as I can tell. So we want to talk today about how can educators create plans that will hit this ever-moving target. And today we're going to talk about ways that we can incorporate technology to engage students, how do we connect with caregivers, and basically how do we effectively educate students during these very uncertain times. So one thing I do want to clarify is the language that we're going to use today. We've learned some new vocabulary in the last few months with quarantine teaching or any language that you want to use. So over the last 6 months, we've used terms like distance learning, remote teaching, virtual instruction, online instruction, and even terms like pandemic teaching to describe the way that we've been teaching without a physical classroom. And this fall, as things continue to change, we found that there's a need for expanded language that encompasses all of the back to school approaches and acknowledges, again, that we're just continuing in uncertainty this semester. So in this panel, we're going to be using terms like continuous learning, hybrid learning model, and those are all going to be describing approaches that cover everything in-person and remote, synchronous and asynchronous instruction, and hopefully the ability to toggle easily between each of these modes from day to day and week to week. So let's go ahead by introducing our panelists. Tiffany, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, I am Tiffany Losasso. I teach in Jeffco Public Schools in Colorado. I am a middle school digital teacher librarian, which means that I'm in charge of tech integration, support, training, everything with the library, and I teach classes. So I do all of the things.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. Michael, I think you're still muted if you want to unmute yourself.
There we go. Hello, I'm Michael Green. I'm in Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. I'm a certified Pear Deck coach, and I was most recently a school-based technology specialist in Fairfax County. And as of a couple weeks ago, I just became a technology support specialist to further support our school's infrastructure and devices. Shout out to all the amazing SPETs and T-SPECs in Fairfax County, and also to the teachers at Irving Middle School.
Thanks for joining us. Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Lutz, and I'm a special education teacher in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is right next door to Michael. So that's kind of fun. I primarily worked in 3rd grade last year, but I also have 7 years of experience in self-contained middle school as well.
All right, thank you guys so much for joining us and sharing your expertise. As you can see, we have a wide range of experiences coming to you today to share insights. So Michael, starting off, as I mentioned, I have not yet heard of any two back to school plans that are the same. So will you briefly describe what your school or district's back to school plan is?
Yes, totally. Fairfax County, we're providing our community with a great website first and foremost of detailed information about our return to school plans. We will begin the school actually on September 8th, virtually. However, should health and conditions improve, the plan is to first bring students back for intervention supports on a limited basis. Following that, working to bring students back to school as soon as possible, starting with elementary students, our pre-K through 12, special education students, and also our English language learners. Our superintendent, Dr. Scott Brabrand, will actually also be holding another virtual community town hall tomorrow evening to help take and answer some more questions.
So certainly changing even this week. Ashley, will you share a little bit about what your district's back to school plan is going to look like?
Yes, as of right now, we are 100% virtual or distance learning as well. But like Michael said, if conditions improve, we are in hopes to bring back a select number of students, depending on a variety of reasons. I know the special education population is one community that they are trying to bring back into the schools to get some instruction in person or in a hybrid setting. But as of right now, we are doing 100% distance learning, but we will be having more details finalized in the next few weeks with a few school board meetings we have planned.
Wow, so things are still relatively up in the air for you, it sounds like. And Tiffany, what is Jeffco's back to school plan looking like?
So our plan is a little complex. So students can choose to do 100% remote, and they will join our already established online school that we have. Otherwise, for the first 2 weeks, all students will be remote with a one-time in-person orientation. And then after that, so starting in early September, it will be a hybrid model for the secondary schools. And so the students will participate in, first period for the same time every day, but half of those days will be online and half will be in person. And then the primary schools, they will be 100% in person starting early September.
The common thread that I'm hearing from all of you is there's going to be phased approaches, and that you're going to be trying to touch your highest risk populations earliest and making sure that their needs are met. But sounds overall like it's going to be complicated. You guys are keeping a lot of things in the balance, which I think all of our viewers can probably relate to as well. So let's talk about the things that are a little bit more concrete in some of the plans you have in place, some of the recommendations. So Ashley, we'll start with you. What are the tools that you plan to rely on most for continuous learning this fall, and why are you planning to choose those?
So our county has changed their platform. We are going to be using Schoology this year, which I've heard wonderful things about. We will be getting more information as we prepare to go back into school next week. Well, virtually for teachers, they're going to be giving us a lot of tutorials. We've had a quick overshadow prior to the shutdown, being able to learn about it. But I also will be using Pear Deck for multiple reasons, because I love the fact that I can record myself teaching my students exactly what they're going to be doing. So if we do transition to a hybrid model, I can record myself doing the same lesson I would be doing in school that students would be seeing at home. So it's a very seamless transition from them coming into school and working from home. Our school also likes us to use Reading A to Z, Epic, and Dreambox, Boom Cards, those kinds of things to keep, like I said, a seamless transition. They could be doing them in the classroom, but they can also be doing them at home, so students don't really have to do a lot of changing from one setting to another.
So you're going to keep a set toolbox in order to maintain as much consistency as possible. Is that accurate to say?
Absolutely, yes. And a lot of these are familiar toolbox things that we've used in the springtime and that students just use throughout the school year. So it should be an easy transition for them if all goes well.
Yeah, and forgive me if you said this and I didn't catch it. What video conferencing platform do you use or recommend? You said you record yourself when you're giving instruction.
Yes, so we use Google Meet or I use Screencastify. Those are the two methods that our school has provided for us.
Excellent. Tiffany, same question to you. What are the tools that you're planning to rely on most? Which ones do you recommend for others and why?
So actually kind of opposite of Ashley. So I'm very familiar with Schoology, and I haven't used Google Classroom in the last few years. And my school is going all Google Classroom this year. So we'll help each other out. But I'll be doing all things Google because of its collaborative nature and its user friendliness, and people are used to it and it's accessible. So we will be using Google Meet, we'll be using slides, all of that sort of thing. And obviously Pear Deck, that's why I'm here, because before everything, that was a big usage tool we had. And then in regards to videos and that sort of thing, I really like Screencastify. And then my district has accounts for WeVideo as well. And so we have those editing options and, the new GIF maker and all of that. And then I also really love Flipgrid, mainly because, we know a lot of our students will choose to get on their devices, and, Flipgrid is really easy to record and, share things with each other on their own devices, which is great. Similar to what Ashley mentioned, kind of keeping the tools as small as possible. This is my first year at my school, and I've spent the last couple of years supporting teachers in a different district. So I want to make sure that I'm not showing up and throwing a million tools at my teachers who then have to help their students do this remotely for the first couple of weeks. And so just keeping that number limited is going to be important.
Excellent. Michael, finally for you, what kind of tools are you going to be relying on? What do you recommend?
Well, starting in Fairfax County, we have a Return to Learn staff Google site that's been really robust. It provides a bevy of instructional resources and best practices for our teachers. It's been produced and collaborated on through various offices. So all our offices and FCPS are culminating resources and information for our teachers and students, and so that they're fully equipped and have the best information and resources at their disposal. Fairfax, we utilize many great instructional programs, some of which Ashley and Tiffany already mentioned. Starting with our basal resources, we have programs like MathSpace, Discovery Ed. Our teachers and students also utilize G Suite, so we have all the full bevy of Google apps. We also have Blackboard right now, which includes Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. We love using Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, Deck Toys, many more. I could probably talk an hour about Deck Toys and Flipgrid and Edpuzzle by themselves, all of which are great programs for asynchronous learning and even synchronous learning. Several of our schools will also be piloting Schoology this year, so that's going to be new for us in Fairfax County. Teachers can use Google Meet, Collaborate Ultra for synchronous sessions, and of course, just like Tiffany mentioned, last but not least, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for an incredible tool like Pear Deck. It is an amazing tool that provides teachers with a multitude of instructional options to engage learners. I sing its praises all the time. Ever since I started using it, I'm proud to be a certified coach, and it's really great because it can cover a whole wide swath of content areas and really engage learners from K through 12. And so all the above. It's really great for all levels. And I do have to give a plug to a teacher at Irving Middle School, Libby Curver. She teaches social studies, and she was actually an Perry Award finalist last year. So I was really proud for Libby, and she does a great job teaching her social studies students, her history students with Pear Deck.
Well, I can't thank you enough, all of you, for your Pear Deck plugs. I can't say I'm upset, and hopefully all of our viewers on YouTube are going to come away from Pear Fair this week agreeing with you and feeling armed and ready for that. Just briefly, I'm seeing a lot in the chat this week. People want to know suggestions for their particular grade level. So whether it's elementary, secondary, or even like something with special education. So quick lightning round question. If you want to break a couple of your recommendations out and say, I love this for elementary, or I love this for secondary or SPED, like this is your must-have tool. Tiffany, 15 seconds. Let's go with you first.
All right. Actually, part of the reason that the ones that I shared were the ones that I chose are because they are pretty great for all of those, for primary, secondary, special ed, ELL, all of that. A lot of video-based for, those reasons. And again, they use their phones, and Flipgrid makes it pretty easy. But I've never taught elementary, so I'm not positive on those ones. I hope that was 15 seconds.
You did great. Michael, real quick, break those out into grade levels for me.
All right. I mean, every grade level can use G Suite, so that's something that I think, Google Apps is definitely across the board the way to go. Flipgrid, same thing. I think a dark horse, and while I love Pear Deck and could talk, more than 15 seconds about it, I think a dark horse for a lot of teachers going into distance learning can be Deck Toys. It is a great tool for synchronous and asynchronous learning. That I don't know if so many teachers are aware of, but Deck Toys is something that is our math, for instance, our math teachers can really benefit from with, just all its leverage.
Awesome. And finally, Ashley, real quick, what are your grade level recommendations?
Well, my two that
Oh no, looks like we may have lost her for a second here. Well, if she comes back in a timely manner, we will.
I'm back.
You're back.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. My two favorites are Boom Cards and Pear Deck for the special education side of it records all the students' answers and takes data for me. So it actually makes my life a little bit easier for collecting data on IEP goals. But you could also differentiate them, especially Boom Cards. You can give students only a select number of slides. So if an entire class gets 20, you could give a student 10 to accommodate an IEP goal. So those are my plugs.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Okay, so the next question we've talked about tools, but tools are nothing without good pedagogy. And at Pear Deck, we really always want to lead with pedagogy, even though I just led with tools because people love that. However, let's get deep for just a second. What are the pedagogy conversations you're having? We're learning a brand new way of teaching and of instructional delivery. Michael, will you kick us off about the pedagogy conversations you're having?
Sure. Actually, in speaking recently with a friend and colleague, Michelle Mishover, who's actually also a Pear Deck certified coach. I don't know if she's in the chat or anything like that, but if you're there, Michelle, hey there. But nonetheless, we both agreed that right now, relationships are the most important thing. So building classroom communities is very important, whether that's virtually or in person. This is a insane time in all of our lives. And so, with that kind of at the forefront, I think, we really have to be cognizant of building relationships and making students feel that they're still a part of and involved in a nurturing community. Our teachers are currently working alongside our tremendous instructional technology coaches and other instructional leaders to equip themselves with that knowledge and some of the best instructional skills possible. This is going to be, a shift for many of us, and most, I'm sure a lot of teachers, had this experience just in the spring, but now we're kind of going full-fledged into a fall. So this is new for everybody. So having those skills in place while in this remote environment is important. Bringing that attention towards student engagement and maintaining, learner-centered environment is key. Establishing good routines and providing consistent feedback will also ensure continuity of learning for all of our students. Personally, when it comes to kind of like reading different, information and notes and resources out there, I love reading many of the amazing ideas that I see shared within the EdTech community, certainly on social media. It's incredible and it's very, influential to see educators coming together to support one another and share resources, share ideas, because I truly think it does take a village to help our students. And it's incredible to see so many people coming together to support, these initiatives and what's so, important for our students and their learning and well-being.
Well said. Ashley, tell us about the kind of pedagogy conversations you're part of right now.
It's a relatively big topic that we're talking about, especially in the special education world, making sure that we're meeting the needs of our students. Like Michael said, making sure that we are building relationships with our students and really understanding what they're going through in tailoring their education and also the information we're giving to them so it's understandable to them. So social stories are a really big one that we've been really pushing for students, especially with visuals and kind of going through what's a normal day going to look like for them. I've been doing a lot of additional research on like the zones of regulation. That was a really impactful thing that a lot of my students used last year. And how can I tailor that to make it at least start the year out with distance learning? What can I do on my end to make sure that they are their emotions are being met and understood? Because sometimes they don't understand how to accurately express what they're feeling.
So I'm not looking at the chat, but I am guessing that some people might want you to explain what the zones of regulation are. Can you throw those out there briefly for us?
Yes, the zones of regulation is a 4 color-coded system, and each color has a feeling that it's associated with. So It goes blue, green, yellow, red. Red is obviously anger, frustration. Blue is more feeling sad, worrisome, lonely. Green is great. Like you want to have a green day. So what I typically do is take my students and we talk about what their emotions are, what it looks like, what does a green day look like, what does a yellow day look like, and how we can transition. Going, if we're in the red zone, what can we do to go back to green? And it works with a variety of different students. Some teachers even just have it up in their room and kids can like put a sticky note or like their number that they're associated with under. So when they come in, that's like a morning check-in. Like, I'm feeling green today. Because something can happen from the walk to school or the bus ride to school to their set footing in the building.
Absolutely.
Or the computer.
Cool. Thank you so much for explaining that. I know that there will be people that appreciate that. And finally, Tiffany, tell us about the pedagogy conversations you're part of right now.
So similar to what Michael was talking about is the, best practices around engagement while keeping that rigorous learning. We also there's a lot of conversations about, what is vital to our classes and that kind of, our curriculum, because we really need to pare things down, because having our students sit in front of computers for that amount of time, they're not going to get as deep if we just keep throwing more material at them. We're also having conversations, not necessarily like pedagogy, but around, when we do this hybrid model, is that going to be like required to be synchronous if you are at home? Or is that going to be, if you're at home, it's asynchronous? Like, what is that going to look like? There's some administrators who are suggesting we require the students to have their cameras on and that we record, and, thinking about like, what are the rights for the students and, FERPA rules and all of that kind of thing. And thinking equity wise, is it okay that we have students forced to have their cameras on or not? And so a lot of conversations.
Yep, you hit on all the ones that I would have wondered about, that we are tackling a very complex problem. But it sounds like you're giving a lot of really great thought to it, and I know that our viewers certainly appreciate it. I have another little lightning round follow-up here. I want to hear from you your one recommended subject matter expert that you're going to. So if there's a book that you've read recently, like if somebody was fast enough to write a book for this, or a podcast that you're listening to, or maybe there's a Twitter account that you really like to follow that's giving good insight. Let's see, I think that it was Tiffany. Let's start with you. I think I might have skipped Michael, but Tiffany, really quick, one subject matter expert that you would recommend that's helping you in the transition.
So there actually was someone who was able to write a book in this super fast time. Her name is Emma Pass, and she released The Hybrid Teacher. It is an online PDF book that she is offering for free. Apparently she was working on it before COVID, and then COVID hit, and she was like, and she basically wrote this book over the summer. I just started reading it recently, and she's been a hybrid teacher for the last few years, and she talks about all of the parts of that and what does it look like and how does it work, and, and addresses that, yes, this is different than the school she's been in, but here's some of her best practices and her supports. So that's huge. Emma Pass, The Hybrid Teacher.
Emma Pass, The Hybrid Teacher, perhaps prophetess. We're not sure.
Right.
Michael, who's your one recommended subject matter expert right now?
Since this is a lightning round, I have to, that's a very tough and great question. I would have to circle back to someone who kind of inspired me in grad school and his philosophy towards education, and that was John Dewey. A lot of amazing quotes, and one of which that always stuck with me was that he said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And that's certainly, key in this moment that we're all in, that we have to change, our approach, and it's going to require a lot of, heavy lifting and some shifting. And I think we have to keep that focus on what best we can do for our students to give them that tomorrow that they're all going to need.
Oh, that is well said. And some timeless wisdom from John Dewey. What a classic. Ashley, who's your one subject matter expert you would recommend for people in transition right now?
Okay, so I love podcasts because I can throw an AirPod in and play with my little kids and learn and do something at the same time, play with the kids. So I listen to podcasts, and the two that I listen to the most are the Autism Helper. That's her podcast name. And then Adaptation Station are my two podcasts. And Autism Helper is a little bit longer, about 40-minute episodes, and Adaptation Station, which I love, they're 15 to 20 minutes, really quick. You listen to them on the way to work and like one way. So short and sweet and to the point.
The Autism Helper, and what was the second one?
Adaptation Station.
Adaptation Station. That should have been way easier for me to remember in such a short window. All right. Thank you guys for your recommendations. We touched on this a little bit, so we don't have to rehash it extensively, but I wanted to know about how you're incorporating social emotional learning into your approach this year, because I think we all agreed a few questions ago that this is going to be central. So how are you incorporating social emotional learning into your approach this year? Michael, it is your turn.
I'm up. So actually in Fairfax County, there's going to be designated time built into the schedules for schools to focus on social emotional learning and building community within each classroom. So I think that's certainly important, that there's going to be that designated built-in time to devote to this, because it is so, paramount and important right now. Joan Lee, a colleague and friend of mine, and she's one of our educational specialists in the Office of School Counseling Services. She actually recently invited me to host a PD session with them and their counselors, and so on how they can integrate Pear Deck, which was really fun, and of course for me to share Pear Deck and with the masses. And so their focus being on designing interactive social emotional learning lessons that can be used throughout the division. And so I think that's going to be really great work to see what their offices and team pull together for the benefit of all, for the students throughout the whole county. And so Joan Lee is certainly someone who I really enjoy working with, and so I was glad that she invited me to to present with their team. And I think sometimes, this is my personal point, sometimes our counselors' work it might take place behind the scenes, and sometimes I think it goes unnoticed. But now more than ever, our counselors are going to be very vital to to the understanding and conversations and what's going to really need to take place now more than ever. And so as we begin a new year, our students' social emotional health is most important.
So well said. And if you guys are wondering how Pear Deck can be a part of social emotional learning, we do have a set of social emotional learning templates you can find in the sidebar when you're going to look through our templates. They are there. Ashley, how are you going to be incorporating SEL into your approach this fall?
So like Michael, we also have set time in our daily schedule so far that we'll be working on that. But the teachers I worked with last year, I did a lot of co-teaching. They started every single day with a morning meeting and incorporated social emotional learning in it every single day. Something that I think was a really cool idea that happened in the spring was one of the teachers I worked with had a Bitmoji classroom, and she had a student spotlight every other day. She did one, and she did a 2-minute video, 1 to 2 minute video, and she talked about every single kid in such a positive light. And it was just something I think the students really looked forward to, because she didn't tell you when your day was. So it's something really exciting to pop in and be like, oh, is it my day? It was just a really good morale booster for the kids, especially being in elementary school. Their world was shaken very quickly. But I do a lot of emotional walls, like in the classroom, an emotional wall or an emotional poster, and really discussing what those emotions look like with my students. I buy a lot of stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers, honestly, that I'm not going to recreate the wheel. If it's already made out there and it's differentiated, I'm buying it. Social stories are a big one. And then I'm going to tweak, and once I am given the position I'm going to be working in this year, depending what grade level, I'm going to work with the grade level teachers and figure out how we can work something in, whether it's a Google form every morning of just like a 2-second, how am I feeling? What's, some type of quick thing to do a check-in with the kids that's anonymous, not anonymous, but private. So just the teachers could see it, just in case there is something the kids want to talk about. But like Michael said, the counselors have been doing such a wonderful job behind the scenes, even though they might not be popping into every Zoom meeting or Google Meet. They're doing wonderful things in Loudoun County to really support the kids emotionally, which I'm loving seeing.
All really good. Thank you, Ashley. And finally, Tiffany, how are you going to be incorporating SEL into your approach this year?
So this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately because our middle school that I support, we are going to be doing 85-minute class periods. And for any of you who have taught middle school before and have done that, which I have, it's rough. And our kids, especially on devices and things. So I've been thinking a lot about, building in, hey, some of those Pear Deck things, because those are already made and I don't have to do much with it. But then also just some, check-ins, and maybe there's going to be a gap of time where kids are working on their own, and then I can just kind of grab each one into a breakout room or, that sort of thing. And so really, I want to focus on the one-on-ones a lot this coming year.
I think that's going to be really powerful. Wow, I'm blown away to hear about the designated time that's being built in by some of your districts. I think that's so exciting and probably really long overdue if ever there was a silver lining to something that is not ideal. It might be that. So kudos to your schools for doing that. All right, we've got 2 questions left and just about 9 minutes to wrap this up. So just giving you guys a little time check here. The next thing that I want to hear from you guys are, what are some of your best practices for keeping parents or caregivers engaged and informed? I know that this was a big challenge in the spring, and I would love to hear what you guys are doing. So Ashley, I think you're up next to lead us off. What are some best practices for keeping parents and caregivers engaged and informed in this hybrid approach?
So an open line of communication is my number one, with or without a pandemic. I, during the spring, did after my sync sessions with students, I knew the parents were nearby, but I always told them, when I'm done talking, the last 5 minutes are for you. Once we hit our 30 minutes that we were working with, I said, pop on, ask me questions face to face. It's a little bit easier. I had set office hours that I had my Google Meet open. The parents had the link. They could pop in and talk to me. Email was a great one. And then with Schoology, from what I understand, it is a little bit easier for parents and teachers to communicate, I think, versus Google Classroom. So I'm really excited for that feature to keep that open communication live. And I always sent 1 to 2 emails a week, just summing up what we were doing. Do people have questions? What are their concerns? Are things happening? But email was always a really good option too, just for parents to be able to communicate very quickly.
I love that last 5 minutes thing. What a brilliant idea. Did you feel like it was pretty successful?
Yes, parents were very respectful of waiting till the last 5 minutes and really asked questions that was easier to talk about on a video chat versus trying to explain it via email. So they were very happy with that, just for quick tips and guidance on certain things.
Brilliant. I love it. All right, Tiffany, how are you planning to keep parents and caregivers engaged?
Well, I think one of the biggest and most important thing is having the, clear, here's where to go for the information. And, here's how often these things are going to be updated. And that's part of the reason that my school decided to go all Google Classroom, was because last year the teachers were allowed to choose between Schoology and Google Classroom. And then parents just got confused. There's just too much happening. And so as long as, we stay consistent, I think that's really important for them, because, they're in a new world too, and they're trying to do things that they haven't done before. And so we want that to be as clear as possible. As well as, I think it's really important, and this gets overlooked so much, but making sure that we are sending out communications to parents about how to use all of the tools that we're doing, because we can't assume that if so-and-so has a problem, they don't know how to use Google Doc or something like that. We assume their parents do, but that's not the case. And so I really want to make sure that our parents at our school know how to access all of these and what to do with them. Ashley, I love that idea of the 5 minute at the end. And, because we know a good chunk, middle and high school, it's getting a little less, but a good chunk of parents are nearby. And so even if they're not there, but saying like, hey, this is your time, I think that's brilliant. That's great. Stealing.
I know, if I was in the classroom, I would steal it too. I just can't affirm enough how much I've seen out on social media, my friends who are parents who struggled with technology. So I think that is really highly empathetic of you to make sure that they know how to use their technology too. Michael, close us out. What are some best practices you recommend for keeping parents and caregivers engaged?
Our district, in each school, actually, we maintain detailed and thorough websites. I think that was mentioned before, that are consistently updated with new information to keep the community informed of plans and progress. And so I think that's certainly very important, just to keep the community apprised of what's coming and what's new and all of what that's taking place. As mentioned before, our school board and superintendent, Dr. Scott Brabrand, they're doing the heavy lifting for all of us, making the tough decisions. And so, I can't imagine, the conversations and decisions that have to take place, at those levels and making these decisions for a school division as large as we are, one of the largest in the country. And so, I think they're the MVPs right now of all this to make those, having to make those decisions. But our theory of action aligns to make sure that, the needs and needs and desires of our students and families are met. And so, additionally, maybe now more than ever, I think of another, when it comes to best practice, digital citizenship. This is also something that's important and component for all of us to be mindful and consider. Tammy Sisk, she's an educational specialist in our instructional technology integration office. She's helping lead, that charge for many of our schools with digital citizenship resources, including helping schools obtain Common Sense certification for digital citizenship. So that's something that's also really key. And so I don't want that, certainly digital citizenship, now that students are going to be on their devices for certain periods of time. I think Tiffany mentioned that earlier. And that's going to be something that's really going to be, we have to all be mindful of and helping students not only learn with their social emotional learning, but also be good digital citizens. And so Fairfax County, I think, does an amazing job for offering our families some specific online digital citizenship courses, even for our parents, including curriculum and additional guided resources for support. So I think, we have a very, great system in place and certainly information to give our families and students, the resources and support that they're going to need.
It really does take a village. Thank goodness we're all in this together. Well, we have just 3 minutes left, and I did not save a softball for the end, because why would we end on something soft when we're having such a hard conversation here? My last question is, how are you addressing tech inequity as you build your plans? And I'm not sure we can wrap that in 2 minutes. So, Michael, as someone who has been highly focused on district-wide technology and school-based technology, I'm going to let you close us out with, how is your district addressing tech inequity as you're building plans?
Well, great question. Fairfax County, we are certainly right now, we're working to ensure that every student has access and reliable technology. And that also includes internet, working with public and private partnerships. Our schools, we're making sure to provide students with MiFi devices, so that gives them internet access at home should they need it. And, as well as also library and computer lab access. And so this is something that, we're still, the needs, again, to kind of circle back to what I just mentioned, the needs of our students and families is most important. And I know Fairfax is and will do the best that they can to ensure that students have what they need. Right now, I can say our IT staff, our school-based technology specialists, our T-specs, and including yours truly, are working diligently to prepare devices and get them distributed to students and families, and again, to kind of have what they're going to need for, the start of school and to continue, the best learning and instruction that we can provide.
A succinct answer to a very hard question. Thank you so much, Michael. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. Just make sure everybody has time for transition to our closing sessions for the day. I cannot thank you three enough for joining us. These are hard conversations. The answers are ever changing, I think, but I know that our audience appreciates your expertise and your empathy. Your students, I'm sure, appreciate you too, as do we. I want to recap a couple of the recommendations as we're closing out, because I know that people were probably scribbling down these responses. So really quick, I'm going to go around again. If you want to quickly recommend the subject matter experts that you're reading and studying right now or relying on, Tiffany, start us at the top and we will close out from there.
So mine was the new book, The Hybrid Teacher by Emma Pass. And you can Google it and it'll come up. It's Pass, Pass.
Excellent. Michael, what was your recommendation?
I'm actually going to recommend that everybody follow the hashtag FCPS, SBTS. All right, so those are the Fairfax County Public Schools School-Based Technology Specialists. So FCPS, SBTS. Follow that hashtag and you're going to learn a lot from some incredible educators as well as the teachers in their buildings.
Fantastic. And Ashley, those podcast titles one more time.
The Autism Helper, and then Adaptation Station.
Excellent. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining our panel discussion today. I hope that you were inspired and encouraged, and hopefully you have some new resources to go check out. And panelists, thank you once again for joining us. We've got a few more hours of Pear Fair left. Let's go enjoy them. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.